What is good, NIO family? It's Rey-Jay back with another video, and this one will break down what's going on with NIO stock, what you should be watching for moving forward. I'm also going to talk about the overall market, what's going on with it, what the technicals are suggesting for SPY, Tesla, and the QQQ, what you should be watching for this week, as we have a very big week ahead of us. Before I break anything about all this information, before I get into any more details about NIO, let me just mention a couple of things. I'm firstly not a financial planner. Make sure you take none of this as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Webull link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Webull, the link down below, and deposit any amount of money into the account, you are guaranteed up to 12 free stocks. The offer ends in just about 9 days, so check it out before they run out. With that out of the way, let's get on with the video. All right, so NIO is currently up about 0.38% in the after hours, holding up quite decently after we got some good news involving China and the battery swap stations, not to mention some other pieces of news involving NIO's new basically solid state battery. So all this good news was coming out, the whole battery swapping innovations and the support it's getting for it. But the real question is, how will NIO move going forward? And one thing I want to note is that we're about to get a bearish cross on the PPO on the daily chart. We just barely got it. And I want to note that the market is looking a little bit more bearish looking at the technicals. So there is a good chance we might see NIO slow down because of it. But it's not necessarily the end of the world because of the fact that we have some very big catalysts coming out the week after this week. Let me break down what they are. So before I break them down, let's first talk about this. For earnings, we have some huge earnings coming up before the market opens. We have a couple of banks like the Bank of Hawaii, very small ones. Then we have Domino's Pizza, and we have just a couple of other tech stocks coming out after the market closes. So we're going to start off with earnings like this, but then for Tuesday, it's going to get very serious because we have GM, Verizon, GE, Spotify, and a bunch of others in the morning. Then after the market closes, we have Microsoft, Alphabet, Snap, and a bunch of others. Microsoft is going to be a big one, but I'm pretty optimistic for Microsoft. I think they're going to announce some big AI paid services, and we know the market loves to move when AI is spoken about. Now, for Wednesday, we have a very big day for Wednesday as well. We have AT&T, Boeing, Coca-Cola, Hilton all announcing their earnings in the morning. Then we have eBay, Chipotle, a couple of research firms, and Meta all releasing earnings on Wednesday. Not to mention like Intel, Roku, and a couple of others for Thursday and Friday. And for Friday, we have like ExxonMobil and Chevron. So some energy companies and the natural gas ones. That's very important. But here's another thing you have to remember. There's not a whole lot of data coming out for Monday and Tuesday, but for Wednesday, we have the FOMC meeting. The Fed rate hike decision is going to be made, and the Fed will most likely give us another rate hike. This is very important. But I also want to add that looking at Monday, which is tomorrow, we have the Chicago Fed National Activity Index basically reporting the data, which is not going to be that big. But then we have the PMI data coming out 15 minutes after the market opens. So we're going to get some manufacturing data and global services data to see how it's doing. And this is subjected and expected to be a little bit lower than what we saw from before looking at the previous data. So we are basically showing signs of a potential contraction in the economy. And it is starting to show now. So this is worth noting. This is going to come out 15 minutes after the market opens. Be prepared for some volatility. Now, as far as NIO goes, it had very flat volume at 33 million, and the price price ratio is starting to weaken, which is a sign of relative weakness. Now, JP Morgan just came out a couple of days ago, and they're saying that they're pretty neutral on NIO, which is a pretty decent sign. At least they're not bearish. And NIO does tend to be a little weak on Mondays compared to Tuesdays. It's only green about 49% of the time. And we tend to do relatively well in July. And so far, it's been a pretty decent July for NIO, if I might say. But August tends to be a little slow before September is stronger. But I think it's going to be a little different this year because NIO was very weak for the first 6 months of the year. And I think that during the next 6 months, it's going to improve a lot because of some stronger earnings and things like that. Now, on a seasonality basis, NIO tends to do relatively well during the period of December. But then during this period right here around August, it tends to be a little bit weaker. And we tend to do a lot better around September. That's what happens historically. I think, like I said before, it might be a little different. I think as long as they do very well with deliveries, they could continue to outperform the market. The short interest is still kind of like low, so nothing too crazy is coming from there. And then when it comes to headlines affecting NIO, if you look at this, there's not a whole lot going on. We did see XBONG drop because analysts are saying that they should be taking profits. There's a good opportunity for that. And to add on to that, there are other individuals talking about how Tesla can be more lucrative than like NIO, but that's about it. I didn't really see anything else that's too big in terms of the news. It's just worth noting. On NIO's Twitter page, they mentioned that there's a journey of 3,100 kilometers with 33 power swap and power charger stations in a particular part of China, which is once again very, very awesome. They're continuing to grow as time goes on, and I'm very excited for what the future holds. Anyways, now let's talk about the market. Let's talk about NIO. How are things looking? So it's awesome because NIO is getting hit with lots of good news, which is why it's holding up. But if you look at NIO, one thing that's a little concerning is the fact that NIO overall is continuing to make lower highs. This is what the trend is looking like if I zoom out. We were at 11.3, then 11.2, then the high was 10.7. So it is declining. We have this imbalance down here on the 9.9 area. I think NIO is going to try to pop in the morning and slow down as time goes on. But what is a little bit not so good for NIO would be how the market's looking. If you look at SPY, it has a clear inverse cup and handle that's forming, and it's getting very close to testing the 200 EMA on the 30 minutes time frame. I believe this is going to be tested. I think it's going to pop in the morning, then start slowing down, and we're going to be watching this imbalance down here at 450. We still have this inverse head and shoulders, which was valid. It did try to bounce off of it, but it's still continuing to slow down. And we have this, like I said before, an inverse cup and handle. It's still looking more bearish. I'm going to be watching 450 on SPY very carefully. For the triple Q, we have this unfilled gap, and we also have this cup and handle, inverse cup and handle like formation. This is forming like a head and shoulders. Then we have this unfilled gap down here around this 373 area. That tells me that there's likely going to be more downside for it. It may try to gap up and retest the 50 before it continues to come down or get very close to it. So I'm going to be watching like around, since this is downtrending, maybe around like 377, 376 around there before this thing continues to come down. I'm going to be watching that as resistance. And I think that this is continuing to downtrend. So, the QQQ is looking weak alongside the NASDAQ. And finally, the same thing could be said about Tesla as Tesla's continuing to downtrend, right? Tesla tried to get a bounce. So we're going to be watching this 255 area. I think it's going to try to gap up, balance a little bit, then start coming down again. And we're going to be watching 255. If that fails us on the 4-hour time frame, watch 251. That's going to be our next major support, this 251 area, very close to 250. For NIO, what do I think is going to happen? Well, just like I said for the market, okay, NIO is kind of tight in this range, right? Like this, we have this resistance that keeps on getting lower and lower for the stock, but the support that's holding up is around 10.2. If NIO breaks below 10.2, it's going to come all the way down to about 9.9. But what is good is it formed a double bottom, and it looks like it could be forming a W. So that's what the bulls will say. Maybe it wants to start pushing up a little bit. I think it's going to try to push up and gap up a little bit more, get very close to about $11. Then it's going to start slowing down around there. I think it's going to establish a lower high right over here and actually continue to slow because of the market. I think the market may drag NIO down, and NIO is going to get a retest of eventually 10.2 by the next couple of days. And we'll see if that breaks or not. There's a good chance it's going to eventually break and make its way down to the nines. But then it's not the end of the world because, like I said previously on this channel, for the end of July, we have some big deliveries numbers coming out, not to mention NIO has earnings a couple of weeks after. So there's still some big catalysts for NIO, but I do believe it's going to try to pop in the morning, get a retest of these very high 10s, if not get very close to 11. The news will affect it too, and then I do anticipate some more downside because of the QQQ dropping. The whole market is dropping, and that's going to be very important. That may slow NIO down, unfortunately, but we're going to be watching 10.2 if NIO could hold it. I do think it's going to be tested over the next couple of days, and it may break it, unfortunately, just temporarily. However, don't worry. Even if NIO comes down to 10.2 or even 10 or even the 9s, I'm completely fine with that because there's a good chance of a bounce if NIO gives us a strong deliveries report as we approach the month of August. If we get some strong numbers, I'm going to be expecting a nice bounce on NIO. And I think it's very important to note, and this could be very, very good for profits. All right, so that's what I'm seeing for NIO. We're going to be watching deliveries in just about 9 days from now or so, like 8 to 9 days. It comes a little bit after the beginning of August. Get ready for it, and we still have lots of potential. Get ready for the big week. We have big earnings and FOMC. And until I see you guys again tomorrow, NIO to the moon, and peace out.